Hello, welcome to the Blue Lounge. In the room that's not that blue. I mean, the chairs are blue, carpets are blue, I guess. So we just finished round 2 of the QIUP World Universities Peace Invitational Debate 2017. The room that Ali and I watched were a room with UMB in opening government, APU helped in opening opposition, LSEA in closing government, and we had IIUMA in closing opposition. And the motion before the House was...
This House believes that Zimbabwe should prosecute Robert Mugabe for crimes against the Zimbabwe people. The verdict was first to closing government, second to opening opposition, third to closing opposition, and fourth to opening government.
Okay, so you can obviously tell if you're in any edge core, you know the not cool happened recently, and you just know that at some point someone has to use this as a motion.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so as you heard, closing government got a first, and then opening government got a fourth, and then closing opposition got a third, and opening opposition got a second. So I don't know, like, what do you feel about this debate?
So these are like my general comments I have for this debate. I think firstly, if you look at the motion sort of wants you to focus on the atrocities that's been done upon the Zimbabwean people.
Yeah.
And I just felt like teams within this debate was skirting around that context and was not providing, I guess, to some extent, detailed accounts of what Mugabe has done upon its people and what are the effects of this policy upon its people. Does it make it worse? Does it make it better? And I think the second comment that I would have within this debate is that I don't think teams were explicit enough in telling me why should I care about this argument. It's like, why are these things important per se? Like, every team prioritized different things, and at the very end it seemed a little bit messy.
Right. Yeah, so this could just be like my own, but not biased, my own personal preferences to evaluating arguments. I'm the kind of guy who, as a friend of mine, Myth, once told me, it has to be an argument that tugs on a heartstring. You know, like, it has to be an argument that makes you really care about the stakeholders that are involved, right? Like, for example, so the first thing that you said just now, I think was to some extent quite clear, quite true in the debate, as in, like, people are talking about arguments academically.
Yeah.
You know, people are just talking about, justice. People are talking about, like, the court system. People are talking about this, that. But not a lot of people are telling me stories about, like, what exactly happened to the people of Zimbabwe.
And I think in a motion like this, it requires a lot of illustrations on the pain that people feel on the ground. And I think, like, to a very large extent, this debate happened in a very stoic manner, like, this is matter of fact. These are the arguments that we need to run, but not necessarily talking about the sentiments on the ground and the fact that how, like, the Zimbabwe people are extremely affected by Mugabe for the past 30 years during his dictatorship. Right? So I think that was also lacking within the debate.
Okay lah, but that being said, I thought parts of this debate was really good.
Yeah.
Like, let's just look at the gov bench in general. Aside with opening government.
Yeah.
So I think opening government jump on the opportunity to, like, just Robert Mugabe, bad person. Let's, like, tell stories about why he bad, all that, right? And I thought it was fair. Like, I thought the way
that was important.
Yeah, that was important, right? Like, the way they illustrated the story was fine. You know, they said, okay, Robert Mugabe, took away some land, discriminated on some minorities, don't take away land from this minority, all, like, I think that's fair. And then telling us things like, you know, electoral fraud, like, okay, that's all fair. But as I listened to the Prime Minister's speech, I realized, like, so at what point does this debate start? You know, like, okay, so what do you want? Or, like, why do you think this is preferable? Because if I'm in opening opposition, I'm just going to think, I'm not going to disagree.
Yeah,
yes, Robert Mugabe is a horrible person.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like what we discussed earlier, it's like a storytelling that's not contentious, right? And I think that context is very important, especially in a debate like this, and it has to be provided. But the team has to make some form of effort to link why the specific context is important within this debate. Specifically, because of the things that he has done, which then justifies us prosecuting him, which was largely not very well argued in the very beginning.
Okay lah, but to be fair, like, at some point, they started talking about why we should prosecute the guy.
Justice.
So I think the main claim seems to be like closure. You know, like I think they did argue like some other things. You know, like for example, you need to make sure it's legit, or else people won't be able to fund you. Because if you gain power through a coup, as opposed to being outed by the court of law, then people are going to think, oh, this country not legit, so they're not going to fund us, things like that. I think that was just a bit. This just touched a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I think the main thing seems to be this emotional argument about closure,
catharsis. To the people.
You know, so people have been through a lot. They want to feel like this sense of joy, knowing that the evildoer has already been behind prison, are going to be sent to prison and all that. But I don't know, like, so I'm trying really hard not to easily be unpersuaded by arguments that are like, not, I wouldn't say intangible, like arguments that are about feelings, arguments about people feeling better. That's why generally retribution, for example, in the criminal justice debate, retribution has never been an argument that I'm particularly persuaded by very easily, right? So I'm trying really hard to, okay, like maybe there's something tangible, or maybe there's something going on in the argument. Maybe something will happen to the Zimbabwean people upon learning that Robert Mugabe is in prison.
So there was no like specific outcome that was discussed at the end of the argument. That like what has that catharsis meant to its people? Like, does it make people want to move on? Does it make people want to make the country better? Like, it was just to a very large extent what they think will happen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think this and then I think this extends to the argument about deterrence. So they were saying like, oh, if we prosecute Mugabe now, and then this will set a deterrence for other dictators to not do this to like incite violence on the ground. And I think that argument in itself was also very problematic. Though like to a very large extent, that's what the criminal justice system should do, right? To deter people away from like not doing this. But like if you look at how like dictators around the world, like in North Korea, in Syria, in Russia, and there are international law and international courts in place that's supposed to hold these individuals liable for its action, but you don't see that happening. So like, I don't know how to buy that argument about deterrence.
Right. Okay, to be fair, I don't want to sound like that guy who says, must got outcome. Only then I'll buy it. But I didn't see an outcome. So I don't know, Kelly. Maybe it's like closure is something that I think should be something that I can see like, okay, there's some change going on. Yeah, I'm just ranting at this point. Okay, so that's OG. What's going on in OO?
I think there were similar problems I had with opening opposition.
Oh,
like,
really?
generally.
Okay.
So like, so they argued largely about backlash, right? The fact that Mugabe has put people in power, and if we do prosecute these individuals, that means you will implicate large part of the governments, because these are corrupted governments that Mugabe has actually put in place, And the other argument that I find was slightly unpersuasive for me is that they are followers on the ground that would protest his prosecution. And I think this was very easily rebutted by opening government. When opening government's like, no, have you watched the news? Like, lots and lots of people were very happy when Mugabe was, when he stepped down. So then I'm thinking, like, as an average reasonable person looking at this debate, it's very hard to look at the news and watch the news displaying people being happy about Mugabe stepping down. At the same time, hearing an argument about how there are groups of people who are not happy if Mugabe were to be prosecuted, right?
Right. So, then there's that thing that opening up argued about Western imposition. Like the general argument seems to be that prosecute him equates to
Western
imposition. So I'm thinking like, on one hand, to the detriment, unfortunately, to opening government, it wasn't clear. Like, is it an international court? Is it local courts in Zimbabwe? But in either case, like on one hand, I don't know what does Western imposition mean. I don't know. Like maybe I'm just dumb at this point, but like I think like if you say Western imposition, then like illustrate to me like what does that look like? What is it something that came from these courts?
So it just sounds like the court system is intrinsically Western, and therefore when you prosecute an individual who's not a Western person, therefore it's a Western imposition.
Or maybe I missed that. Was that what was said?
No, because like you said that like because we prosecute this individual,
Right.
then it becomes a Western imposition. So it just feels like the court system in itself is West.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's also very problematic. Though I find that like in the beginning when I was commenting about like the general debate, when I said that teams aren't telling me what I should care about, and I think this I would like to focus on this argument about peace versus conflict. So one of the arguments that Deputy Leader Opposition argue is that individuals on the ground would prefer peace because peace puts food on the table, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like people going to the streets and demonstrating and protesting the prosecution of Mugabe. I mean, like people who still follows him and still likes Mugabe.
Okay.
Then I'm thinking, do people want peace or do they want to protest his prosecution? Like, which one is most likely to happen? Because I'm not very sure. Like, it's very viable that people on the ground wants peace and don't want to deal with the prosecution of Mugabe and wants to move on. At the same time, OG was right, because there are people who want closure, who want catharsis, and there are also people who don't want Mugabe to be prosecuted. So like, I'm not very sure what the people on the ground really want, because I don't think it was resolved towards the end.
That one deadlock lah.
Yeah.
Like
so
deadlock, no one trying to
Correct.
trying to solve it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, closing government got first, right?
Oh yeah.
And they talked a lot about state building and essentially how if we do prosecute Mugabe, we do empower the court system. So what do you think about it?
Okay, so I thought CG. So one of the first things I like about CG was that. So I think OO had a legitimate argument about it's just difficult for us to have a trial, primarily because
the courts are corrupted, right?
More courts corrupted, but more towards like people under Robert Mugabe. You know, like the military personnel who was under him, people who was his cronies, as which was the term used by the closing government, which is accurate. So I think that was a fair, legitimate concern, and I think this is one of those instances where practicalities are going to come out. I want to start talking about practicalities, and then CG had the answer. Like it's not difficult because there are a lot of methods in status quo
to incentivize
the facilitation of a trial. I don't know whether the word facilitation is correct or not. Now, okay, not a point. Like whether a trial can even happen or not. And that method is, for example, if you have amnesty, you know, like, yo, bro, like I know you've done some horrible shit, horrible stuff back in the day, but if you testify in court, if you give you names, then you will not be implicated of any crimes whatsoever. So I thought that was a smart demonstration of why trials
can
happen. Like why trials are just not impossible. So because like if you prove that trials can happen, and that trials are good, they essentially like guff. It's pretty easy to prove.
Yeah. So like obviously, I mean, these individuals will be afraid to come out at first because they know that once that even at the mention of prosecuting Mugabe, individuals who has helped him gain power and individuals who he helped gain power will be afraid to come out. But if we are able to provide incentive, and in general, like humans just respond to incentive. I think that amnesty is an incentive big enough to participate in the trial and to talk about like what Mugabe has done to its people, and you know, to give out information because they know that there is no big consequences after that.
Okay, to be fair, I'm like, for some strange reason, I'm just overblowing like one portion of the CG's case. I think there's a lot more to the case, like arguments about state building. It's all about trying to get legitimacy. It's all about trying to make sure people trust the public administration. You want to tell people of Zimbabwe, the people of Zimbabwe, that, yo, courts can do this. Courts can make sure that people go to jail, you know, things like that. Then people will be like, there is hope for my country. I don't have to deport myself, you know, things like that. So I think that's a good demonstration on how the people of Zimbabwe can actually get out of this entire situation. Also, it's a minor thing to add in the end. Like I generally like the idea about propaganda as well. So the general argument seems to be that Robert Mugabe has built himself on years of propaganda. Like I'll be honest and say that I probably can't recall the nature of this propaganda or how was the characteristics of this propaganda. I felt like at the time when I was listening to member of government that she illustrated it quite well. So I like the mechanism that comes after, which is where in the court you can just have the story either be told in its truthfulness, or have it be confronted by a counter narrative or a counterfactual. I thought that was fair. See, what did?
I think it's a very fair ranking, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Because I do. Because I feel like so there's two things I talk about, right? So the first thing I talk about was cult of personality, and the second thing I talk about was how like you harm process of democratization. So a lot of the context about cult of personality argument was that the military wanted the vice president to be in power, which is Emerson Mnangagwa. I can't believe I actually was able to successfully mention his name.
I don't want to be the first person to mention it.
So like mention that. So firstly, I think the context was speculative in nature, right? So we're not very sure what this not cool is about, because like the media isn't reporting the way it should be. So I think that's problematic as well. But I felt like telling me that Mnangagwa is essentially going to come up and say, oh, we are I saved you guys from Mugabe. I ended the era of the violence that Mugabe has done upon you. Therefore, like that means the next dictator is gonna do that. So I find that argument a little bit not persuasive, because I'm not very sure whether that context is true or not.
Yeah, like I really have nothing much to add. So I initially thought I would have given them a second initially, and to be fair, like maybe I'm over-crediting like some of the claims made by CEO, like the entire bit you mentioned about like Vice President
Emerson Mnangagwa.
Mnangagwa.
Yeah.
Mnangagwa.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that. Okay. Like the entire bit about how does the Vice President Mnangagwa play a role into Robert Mugabe's trial, right? Like what will he do exactly after?
So like
it's speculative. Okay, I think that's fair. Like at first I thought there was a link. Like I thought generally, oh maybe, if he paints himself as the hero, tells people that I'm now your new leader, like your pain and sorrow that is Robert Mugabe is now in prison. It's a lot easier for him to like diminish or it's a lot easier for him to just get away with things. That was what I thought at first. Then the more I think about it, so speculative. Like so assumes on what he'll do after. So okay, like that is fair. So okay, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so that was round 2 of the QIUP World Universities Peace Invitational Debate. We will be back tomorrow, where round 3 will be live, and we will also be back tomorrow to talk a little bit more about round 3 in the Blue Lounge. If you have thoughts about the debate that you have watched,
start your own little discussion.
Feel free to talk about it in the comment section below. But I would like to end this video with the parting words of Victor Finkel from the World's Finals 2011. They made it a wasteland, but call it peace.
Goodbye.